Elizabeth I was born on 7 September 1533 at Greenwich Palace. She was the second child of Henry VIII, King of England. Her mother was Anne Boleyn, the second wife of the king. At birth, Elizabeth was the heir presumptive to the throne of England. When she was 2 years old, her mother was beheaded by Henry VIII's choice, and Elizabeth was declared illegitimate and deprived of her place in the royal succession. Growing up, she learned about 6 languages: Flemish, French, Spanish, Italian, Latin and Greek. She was extremely clever and skillful.
In 1547, Henry VIII died, and Edward VI, Elizabeth's half brother, succeeded him. His widow Catherine Parr married Thomas Seymour, Baron Suteley, and took Elizabeth with them in their household at Chelsea. During these years, Elizabeth had an emotional crisis because Thomas Seymour behaved in an inappropriate way with her, and Catherine decided to send her adopted house in 1548. But Seymour continued to bother her because he wanted to marry her in order to become king. But in 1549 he was beheaded, accused of plotting to marry Elizabeth.
During Mary I's reign, Elizabeth was imprisoned in the Tower of London because she was suspected to have plotted with Wyatt during his rebellion. The two were also of different religion. Mary I was Catholic and Elizabeth was Anglican. Nobody thought that Elizabeth would become queen because Mary seemed pregnant. But when it became clear that Mary had cancer, Elizabeth's succession seemed assured. Mary recognized her as her heir and died in 1558.
In the meanwhile, Mary Stuart was born in 1542 in Scotland. Her father was James V of Scotland and her mother was Mary of Guise. She became Queen of Scotland when she was just 6 days. Then she was betrothed to the Dauphin of France, Francis, son of Henry II, King of France. For this reason, Mary was sent to the court of France at the age of 5. She was lovely, beautiful, and clever, as she was educated in the best way, following Catholic religion. In 1558, married Francis at the Cathedral of Notre Dame in Paris, and when Henry II died in 1559, she became consort of the new king Francis II.
In 1558, Mary I died, and Henry II claimed the throne of England for Mary Stuart because she was a relative of Henry VIII, and Elizabeth was considered bastard by many Catholics. But Elizabeth had been chosen by the English Parliament to become queen because she was Anglican, and they didn't want England unified to Scotland and France. Elizabeth reintroduced the Act of Uniformity in 1563 and the Book of Common Prayers, but she was tolerant towards Catholics. Most of her subjects accepted the compromise as the basis of their faith, and her church settlement probably saved England from religious wars like those which France suffered in the second half of the 16th century.
Elizabeth received many offers of marriage, but she refused all of them, because she didn't want to submit England to a foreign king, or, in case of English husband, she didn't want to lose power. However, the Virgin Queen was presented as a selfless woman who sacrificed personal happiness for the good of the nation, to which she was, in essence, married. In 1560, Francis II died because of illness, and Catherine, new king's regent, forced Mary to go back to Scotland, which was in a period of disorder because it was divided between Catholics and Protestants, led by James Stuart, her half-brother. When she arrived, she chose James as his advisor and decided to be tolerant with Protestants, causing the dissolution of Catholics.
Mary refused Elizabeth's advice to marry Lord Dudley of Leicester and married Lord Darnley of Lennox, leader of English Catholics. Elizabeth was very disappointed about this marriage because they were both Catholics and he was a descendant of Henry VIII too, so they both wanted English crown. Darnley was addicted to alcohol and violent and married Mary just to have more power. Mary got pregnant, but Darnley tried to kill the baby without success. He was also jealous of Davide Rizzio, Mary's advisor and probably her lover, and he made an alliance with Protestant lords to kill him. The complot succeeded and Mary forced Darnley to break this alliance and go away to Dunbar. They came back with James Hepburn of Bothwell, who had an important influence on Mary.
In 1566, James, son of Mary and Darnley, was born and Darnley was killed, probably by Bothwell, but he was absolved. Then, in the same year, he kidnapped and raped Mary, who got pregnant, and took her to his castle. Then they got married with Protestant tradition, and the lords, disappointed, fought against the couple. The two were defeated, and Bothwell went away, and she was enclosed in Lochleven Castle, where she decided to abdicate and nominated Mary as James's regent. Then, forced by his supporters, fought against Mary and was defeated. She decided to escape to England and ask Elizabeth for help. At first, Elizabeth decided to support her, but Mary was Catholic, and so English Catholics started organizing complots against the Queen. Elizabeth decided to imprison Mary, but the plots didn't end. Eventually, the Virgin Queen sentenced Mary to death, and the Queen of Scots was beheaded on 8 February 1587. Her last words: In manus tuas, Domine, commendo spiritum meum.
After Mary's death, Elizabeth's reign reached its golden age. Although she was autocratic and capricious, like his father, she had astute political judgment and chose her ministers well. Elizabeth's reign also saw many brave voyages of discovery, including those of Francis Drake, Walter Raleigh, and Humphrey Gilbert, particularly to the Americas. These expeditions prepared England for an age of colonization and trade expansion, which Elizabeth herself recognized by establishing the East India Company at the very end of 1599. The arts flourished during Elizabeth's reign. Country houses such as Longleat and Hardwick Hall were built. Miniature painting reached its high point. Theatres thrived. The Queen attended the first performance of Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream. Investing in expensive clothes and jewelry, she cultivated this image by touring the country in regional visits, known as progresses, often riding on horseback rather than by carriage. Elizabeth made at least 25 progresses during her reign.
In 1588, aided by bad weather, the English navy scored a great victory over the Spanish invasion fleet of around 130 ships, the Armada. The Spanish Armada was intended to overthrow the Queen and reestablish Roman Catholicism by conquest, as Philip II believed he had a claim to the English throne through his marriage to Mary. A combination of miscalculation, misfortune, and an attack of English fire ships of grape lines, which dispersed the Spanish ships to the northwest, defeated the Armada. Before the battle, the Queen pronounced one of the most famous speeches.
My loving people, we have been persuaded by some that are careful of our safety, to take heed how we commit ourselves to armed multitudes for fear of treachery. But I assure you, you do not desire to live to distrust my faithful and loving people. I know I have the body but of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king, and of a king of England too, and think full scorn that Parma or Spain, or any prince of Europe should dare to invade the borders of my realm.
Overall, Elizabeth's always shrift and, when necessary, decisive leadership brought successes during a period of great danger, both at home and abroad. She died at Richmond Palace on 24 March 1603, having become a legend in her lifetime. After Elizabeth, James Stuart, Mary's son, became king.
In my end is my beginning.